Hi everyone, Tom Wolfe here with G4 Software. In this video I'll be showing you how I use the M-Tron MkII to add a vintage flavour to a cinematic composition. The thing that the Mark II really excels at is being able to instantly evoke these styles of a bygone era. And when you add that to modern cinematic compositional techniques, that can create something very interesting. Alongside the Mark II, I've also used the M-Tron Pro, which is an incredibly useful companion for the Mark II, and I've used a couple of synths from Obe. These have then been layered with Spitfire Audio's Albion 1 for the orchestral sounds and Spitfire's Hammers for the percussive sounds, and a few presets from my Atomos, Fractal and Electra sound banks for Omnisphere. Let's have a listen to the track. So let's start with our rhythms. Now the rhythms are kind of the backbone of the Mark II. And in this track, I'm using a Roomba rhythm. Now, the place you can hear that the most is in the intro. So if we open up the Mark II, you'll see here we've got our rhythm and it's a Roomba 125 BPM and it's in the key of C. This is a preset from the authentic Mark II patches. So it's from the Mark II Station 2. And then you can see you get different kind of rhythms and accompaniments put together in here. So you can pick and choose what you want. For the purposes of this track, I've actually separated the rhythms and the accompaniments, but this software has been designed so that you can play them together just by using two fingers. I've separated them out so that I could have overall control of the effects. So let's have a listen to our Roomba. Okay, so we've got this lo-fi Roomba sound. Now, I've applied some Filter Freak by Sound Toys to it, so we've got this kind of bandpass filtering, which I thought worked really nicely for the intro where it's on its own. You can see the host sync button is here. Now, that's actually a little bit redundant in this particular track because the tempo of this track is 125 BPM, and as you can see, I've also got the tempo of my track set to 125 BPM. But if you are working a slightly different tempo for your track, then you can just hit the host sync button and it will sync the rhythm and accompaniment to your track. You also hear that we had this kind of tape stop effect happening at the end of that. Now what that is it's the break here. Now you can see we've got the mod wheel controlling the break, and you can select whether you want this to be applied to your rhythm and accompaniments manual, which is this side here, your leads manual, which is this side here, or both. And all you need to do to get that kind of tape stop sound is just move your mod wheel up. So if we come out of this and go back into the track, so you can see we get that tape stop sound just by opening our mod wheel up. We've then got these Roomba left and right here. Okay, so this is the same rhythm, but I've created 2 tracks so that I can pan it left and right. I've then applied a little bit of Filter Freak again, so we've got some bandpass filtering going on there to thin it out so that it fits into the mix. And we've got some Echo Boy, which is, you know, what we're hearing the delay at the end of those tracks there. So you'll also hear that the chord in that passage changed slightly. So if we press this chord button, you can see that all our chords are laid out here and it tells us exactly what they are. So to get one chord, all we're doing is playing a single note in our DAW. So this is just kind of giving us a flavour of those rhythms in the start of this track. You can hear what we've also got is these Chamberlin cello and violin sounds, which are also coming from the Mark II. So you can see here in the rhythm section, as well as the rhythms, we've also got some sounds that you can play chromatically. So we've got our cello DI notes, violins and flutes, and these are all in the Chamberlin sections. So I've used these to kind of give us a lo-fi string sound here. So I've layered the Chamberlin, violin and cellos together here. And you can hear we've also got that break tape stop sound happening there again. This is then layered with the M-Tron Pro M300 strings, which have got a really nice lo-fi sound. And then I'm layering this with just a few kind of orchestral things happening here. So this is from album 1. You can see we've got this deep section, we've got tremolos, and we've got some longs happening here. So the M-Trons are kind of taking the lead there, but the Album 1 strings are kind of giving us a lot of depth and a bit of tension to the sound, and they blend together very well. You can see here we've got these vibe texture audio files, and I won't go into too much detail with these because we've already done another video about how you get this particular sound. But essentially, because of the fact that the Mark II can be tempo synced, what you can do is you can drop the tempo in your DAW, for instance, to about 10 BPM or perhaps even lower. And what it does is it time stretches out your rhythms and accompaniments, and you get these kind of really ethereal sort of textures happening. So to create these textures, I had the Mark II in another project file and I slowed the tempo right down to about 5 BPM. These are vibe accompaniments from the Mark II. So that gave us this really kind of ethereal sort of bell texture happening. And then I also run that through the delay and reverb within the Mark II. I then exported the sound and imported it into this project. So if we just solo that out. So we get these bell-like kind of textures, which I just thought were really nice to kind of add to the textural side of this section. We've then got the Mark II leads. So you'll see for this particular section, we're using the Mark II guitar. So in my right manual, I've set up this lead manual patch, guitar, Mark I electric guitar. Okay, so that sounds like this. So we've got this kind of Pulp Fiction-esque guitar sound, which I've then, absolutely lathered in the beautiful reverb that is included with the Mark II. And we get this really nice vintage lead sound that blends really nicely with everything else. So now we'll move into the second section, and you can see we've got our Chamberlin cello and our Chamberlin violin. So we've now got these Spitfire strings that come in as well. So we've got these kind of authentic sounding strings that are happening there. And then these are layered with our M-Tron Pro M300 strings, our Chamberlin cello and our Chamberlin violin. So we're now getting more of those M-Tron strings coming through, but they're blending really nicely with the actual authentic strings from Albion 1 to kind of add a rustic quality to them while still retaining that authentic string sound. We also introduced some legato strings here, so let's have a listen to those. Now, I've layered this up with some M-Tron Pro, and it's a patch called Combined Violins. Okay, now it's got this really lo-fi sound to it. And you wouldn't think that it sounds particularly nice with the legato strings, but actually the kind of juxtaposition of these sort of high quality authentic strings with that lo-fi mellotron string actually does something really nice. So let's solo those out. So that mellotron kind of blends really nicely in with it, but it still is quite obvious when they're soloed out. But if we add that into the track, just gives us this kind of warmth that wasn't there without them. We've then got a little bit of Obe in here as well. So this is a preset called Broken Bliss from the Polypad section. So I then run this through the Soundtoys effect rack through one of my Soundtoys presets from my Atmospheric Pads pack. So that's given it this kind of ethereal feel to it. And we've then got our rhythm, but we've also introduced some accompaniment here as well. So we're still using the Roomba, but with this time we've removed the filter freak, so it's not being bandpass filtered, and we get the full kind of authentic quality of the mellotron there. And then we've introduced an accompaniment. So both of these are run through Soundtoys Echo Boy as well. But you can hear these blend together really nicely. So let's open up our accompaniment here. You can see we've still got the Roomba sample loaded into the rhythms, but our accompaniment here is the acoustic guitar accompaniment. And it brings this really kind of nice lo-fi strummed quality to it, and it blends with everything else really nice and adds nicely to the rhythm of the track. But one of the things about the Mark II is because it's set in a certain key signature, ideally you want to follow that key signature, but there is a hack. So because I like to make my life difficult, I've actually written this in a key that's not C. So what I had to do to actually get this chord progression was actually automate the pitch. So in here you've got chords that you can use to kind of move about. So you can see we've got a C major chord here and a C minor chord, and that was essentially all I needed for this. So if I hit play, just watch this pitch knob. So I'm just playing the C major and the C minor chords in this section, but I've then used my DAW to automate the pitch so that I'm then shifting it so it's not a C major or a C minor, but we're still getting those major and minor chords, and I can then create my chord progression from that to fit around everything else. So it's a bit of a kind of workaround, but it's something that actually was not too difficult to do if you want to use this to write in different key signatures. So this then blends nicely with our track to give us that rhythm. So let's move into the last section of the song now. So if I just play the orchestral stuff on its own. And then I bring in our Mellotron strings as well. So we've still got the M-Tron Pro M3000 strings going on here, and our Mark II Chamberlin cello and violin strings. So they're now very quiet in the mix, but they're adding like a nice warmth to it and just following the chord progression that's happening. I've also added some M-Tron Pro brass into this section. Which again is giving us a really kind of unique quality to that. I've then also got the Roomba rhythms. You'll see we've got a couple of tracks here called Roomba Tremolo. These are exact copies of our Roomba left and right that we were using earlier, except these are now being run through Soundtoys Tremolator to get a tremolo effect, some Phase Mistress to get a phasing kind of effect, and again we're using some Filter Freak to bandpass filter that. So if we listen to those on their own. So we've got this really thin phased sound, but that adds a really nice quality to our percussion. So if we solo that out. So we've not actually got this kind of rhythm section happening here as such. It's not really creating the base of the rhythm in this part of the track, but it adds really nicely to the orchestral percussion that's happening there. I then added this Obe sequence. This is one that I just quickly programmed myself. This wasn't actually a preset. So it's just a monophonic sequence that's happening with Obe. So if I solo our Obe here. So you've just got this kind of punchy sequence happening with that. And then this blends really nicely with our percussion track. Okay, so we've just got a few more Mark II sections here. So firstly, we've got a piano. So this, again, is a chromatic piano. And that has been loaded into the lead sound. So it's Chamberlin leads, and it's the first one right there. We've then also got these ambient vibes leads, okay? So the first one here is our Chamberlin Vibe. So again, this is in our Chamberlin leads, and we've got Vibes DI. And what I've done here is I've changed the attack and I've changed the release. So it's not, got that attack to the start of the sound. And I've cranked up the reverb a little bit here too. And then in the second track, we've also got some vibes happening, but this is in the Mark II leads. So we've got the Mark II leads vibraphone DI here. So let's just play the Chamberlin first. So those work really nicely when you just pan them left and right and add just this kind of little textural thing to the track. And then we've got our leads. So we've got the return of the guitar lead. So that's exactly the same as it was in the first part of our track. We're now also blending this with a vibes lead as well. So this is our Mark I vibraphone, okay? And again, this has been run through quite a lot of reverb happening here, but we have not done anything with the attack, so we're still getting that full attack here. So these two blend together really nicely. So this is our vibraphone on its own. And then blend it with the guitar. And then at the end there, we've just got our Chamberlin cello and violin leading to a break, and also our vibes texture, which is just adding a bit of kind of ambience to it. So hopefully you've now got a good idea of what the M-Tron Mark II can bring to your cinematic compositions, and just how easy it is to add that vintage flair to them. If you want to find out more about the product, you'll find a link in the description. On behalf of GeForce Software, thank you for watching. See you next time.